Welcome to Quantumly Kinky with Veda, where we talk about sex, Chinese medicine, and character development for the multidimensional you. Episode 7, Your Multidimensional Erotic Shadow. What if our fears, our shame, our shadows weren't meant to be hidden, but seduced? What if the parts of us that feel too dark, too much, too taboo weren't actually barriers to our power, but pathways to it? Welcome back to Quantumly Kinky. I am your host, SarahVeda, and today we're going to be talking about how eroticism isn't just about pleasure. It's permission. It's not just about sex either. It's alchemy. It's the art of turning resistance into flow, fear into surrender, and shame into self-worship. This Quantumly Kinky episode is about the most effortless, least resistant way to reclaim ourselves through the erotic. Because when we eroticize our edges, when we allow our fears to play with us instead of control us, we stop running, we stop fighting ourselves, and we become multidimensionally harmonic. And that means that all of the versions of ourselves can unify. The versions become lovers and allies, not enemies. They coexist harmoniously. No competition here, because there is a play available for all of our versions, as long as we trust, radically accept, and turn our shame into self-worship. So first, let's talk about what does it even mean to be erotic? Well, the word erotic comes from the Greek eros, meaning desire, life force, creative energy. So you can see that eroticism isn't just about sex. It's about being fully alive. It's about moving through the world as if your very presence is a spell, a vibration, a force. Let that idea soak in. Let's take a deep breath together. Moving through our realities as if our very presence is an erotic spell, an erotic vibration, an erotic force. That feels good. Eroticism is multidimensional, right? It exists in the body, the mind, the spirit, and the shadow. In the body, it's the way we touch, the way we breathe, the way we let sensation move through us. In the mind, it's the way we let our thoughts dance with desire, with curiosity, with wildness. In the spirit, it's the deep, intoxicating connection between our pleasure and our divinity. And in the shadow, it's the parts of us that crave things we're sometimes even afraid to name. Because to be erotic is to stop resisting what we truly want and who we truly are. Eroticism is the least resistant path to multidimensional expression. And that's going to lead us to a more fulfilling human existence because we are living out our will, our mission. Most people think of resistance as something external, society, obligations, limitations, all of that placed upon us. But the deepest resistance is often internal. It's the war we fight against ourselves, not the world. We resist our desires because we fear they will make us unlovable. We resist our power because we've been taught to fear our own hunger. We resist even our pleasure because we've been told it could make us dangerous. But what happens? What happens when we stop fighting ourselves? What happens when we let eroticism be our path to least resistance? When we surrender into the truth of what turns us on, what excites us, what pulls at us from the inside out? Well, what happens is we become free. Because the second that we stop hiding, we stop leaking energy into the biggest mind disease of all, shame. And when we stop leaking energy into shame, we reclaim all of that power. Shame is one of the most insidious emotions, creeping into our psyche and convincing us that parts of us are unworthy, unlovable, or even unholy. It keeps us small. It keeps us hidden and disconnected from our true power. But what if we could alchemize shame into something sacred? What if instead of running from the parts of ourselves we've been taught to reject, we turned toward them with reverence, transforming shame into self-worship? Self-worship isn't about arrogance or narcissism. It's about radical self-honoring, treating every aspect of ourselves, even the messy, wounded, and taboo aspects, as divine. So there's really 3 steps to this. The first step is transformation through recognition. Shame thrives in the shadows, but when we bring it into the light, we strip it of its power. So ask yourself, babe, who told me I should be ashamed of this part of me? Was it society? Was it my family? Was it religion? Once we can identify the source of where the shame program got instilled in us, then we can start to dismantle the programming. And the second step is to reframe. Instead of seeing shame as proof of our unworthiness, let's see it as a portal to our liberation. The things we feel shame about, our desires, our body, our pleasure, our emotions, they are often the very things that make us feel the most vibrant and alive. So imagine if we could reclaim them, allow them, not with guilt, but with deep gratitude. Instead of suppressing our sensuality and our desires, we honor them. Instead of punishing ourselves for what we want, we celebrate it as a sacred expression of our unique being. And finally, the third step is to create more rituals of self-devotion. This could be a physical act, like adorning our bodies in a way that makes us feel powerful and untouchable. Or it could be an internal shift, like speaking to ourselves with the kind of love and reverence we'd give a deity. So let's make worship an everyday practice together through sensual movement, breath, touch, and our words that we speak to ourselves and others. Speaking to our bodies, our spirits, our wounds, and even our cravings with complete and total reverence. And over time, the parts of us that once felt like burdens will become altars. What was once shame will become our source of radiance. Take a deep breath with me. Now let's talk a little bit about role-playing with our shadow, using kink as a tool for self-acceptance and self-devotion to reprogram our shame. Our shadow, it's already in the room with us. Our fears, they're already whispering in our ears. Our shame, it already knows our name and every detail about us. So why not invite them all to play? Why not role play with our fears? Why not put our shame in a costume and let it dance for us? Because kink is the art of playing with power, submission, control, and edges. It's not just about sensation, it's about liberation. When we take the parts of ourselves that we've been shaming, our need to be in control, our need to surrender, our dark fantasies, our hidden desires, and we consciously play with them, we can actually rewire our nervous system. We transform resistance into release. We make love to the parts of us that we used to run from. And like Paris Hilton says, that's fucking hot. You see, kink at its deepest level is shadow integration through sensation. So here's some examples, right? Let's say you feel powerless in life, always bending to other people's needs. So in kink, you would play the role of a dominant. You take your power back, you claim control, you learn to own your body and be an authority for yourself in a safe container. Let's say you are hyper independent, afraid of trusting anybody. So in kink, you explore surrender. You learn to let go, to be held, to receive. Let's say you have shame around being seen as too much, too wild, too hungry, too savage. So in your erotic life, you amplify it. You become the character that once terrified you. You exaggerate your desire until it no longer owns you. Because kink is theater. It is ritual. It's an opportunity to embody the parts of us that we've disowned until they no longer feel forbidden. So with all that said, let's get into some of the neuroscience of erotic rewiring and how this actually can change our brain. Our brain is like plastic. It rewires itself based on experience, repetition, and emotion. When we suppress something, our nervous system actually locks it in as a trauma pattern. let that really sink in. When we suppress something, including our dark shadow desires, our nervous system actually locks it in as a trauma pattern. But when we eroticize it, our nervous system can rewire it into pleasure, into acceptance, into play. So, could the key to trauma recalibration really be locked away in our erotic pleasure? I sure think so. So as QKsters, let's commit together to using our pleasure to reframe fear so that our brains can stop associating fear with resistance. Let's commit to making shame a part of our erotic identity so it stops holding power over us. And let's commit to inviting our edges to the bedroom so they can stop haunting us in our everyday human life. So, sweet ones, this is why erotic exploration is one of the fastest, sexiest ways to transform deeply ingrained patterns like trauma. Because the body learns through experience, not intellect. We can think about healing all day. We can read about it for a lifetime. But until we feel it, until we embody it, nothing changes. Eroticism is our multidimensional self in motion. Eroticism is the least resistant path to self-acceptance because it allows all of us, all of ourselves, to exist at once. Our light and our darkness, our desire and our discipline, our pleasure and our pain. When we let ourselves be erotic, we let ourselves be whole. We let our fear sit beside us without shame. We let our shadow slip into silk, leather, and lace, and play beside us without fear. We are not here on planet Earth in this extremely unique opportunity within this exact time-space continuum to be small. We are not here to be contained, afraid, and stuck in our shame. We are here to feel everything, taste everything, burn through every version of ourselves until we are finally, beautifully, devastatingly free. And I am confident if we let our eroticism lead, it will take us exactly where we're meant to go. So with that said, I want to take a minute to thank each and every one of you for being here with me every Wednesday, for feeling with me, for opening up, for playing, because without you, this collaboration isn't possible. So thank you. I appreciate you. Now, I want to know, what part of your shadow are you ready to eroticize? Send me a message, share your thoughts, explore with me on Instagram at quantumlykinky. And if this episode really spoke to you, share it with someone who is also ready to set themselves free. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Quantumly Kinky with Veda. Stay turned on. Till next time.